Uh, Morning. This game has like flashing lights and stuff, so if you're sensitive to that, don't watch this video.
Konami. These guys kind of suck. Was once one of the biggest third-party game publishers, has been completely consumed by greed and has basically abandoned all of their biggest IPs. One of these IPs is Castlevania, an iconic series of platformers with an amazing and extremely popular Netflix show and a huge legacy of great games and stories. And Konami has barely done anything with it since 2014. At least in terms of video games, the show doesn't really count. At least with Silent Hill and Metal Gear, they're trying to make remakes. The most Castlevania has gotten is 3 video game collections. So since I've been really getting into this franchise lately, I decided I would talk about all the mainline games. Hopefully, I haven't done a whole series of reviews like this. I really hope it pans out well. So, what better place to start than with Vampire Killer for the MSX2? Oh wait, I don't know how to emulate MSX stuff. Okay, Castlevania for the NES then. I can't find too much on this game's development, but what I do know is that the director was a man named Hitoshi Akamatsu. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Who wanted to make games more cinematic and made Castlevania with the idea that the players would feel like they're playing through a classic horror film. There are some cut ideas, like the protagonist originally being named Peter Dante, like the big one, instead of Simon Belmont, and also multi-directional whip attacks, and even being able to turn into a werewolf. Both of which were actually ideas that would be used for later games in the series. If you could see like the footage I put up. Yeah, let's start talking about the game. So, in 1986 in Japan and in 1987 in America, Castlevania came out for the Famicom Disk System, and in America, it was, the Nintendo Entertainment System, that thing. So, starting up, we get your usual NES title screen. Although I like the film reels at the bottom and top, and I like that we actually get to see Dracula's castle itself. Most games just had a blank screen with a logo. It's even animated. That's cool. So after pressing the start button, you get this little cutscene. So what the hell is even going on in this game? Every 100 years, Dracula reappears to wreak havoc upon humanity, and in 1691, he once again reappeared, so our protagonist, Simon Belmont, descendant of the Belmont family, is destined to take Drac on with his legendary whip, the Vampire Killer. That's about it. The game does mention that the last Belmont to kill Dracula was called Christopher Belmont, which kind of serves as a setup for a later game, but that's not really important to this game. So yeah, the setup is basically, go kill Dracula. So we start our funny little home invasion, and we're blessed with the game's theme, Vampire Killer. So, as you can probably tell from the screen, this game is, a 2D platformer. And if you know anything about old Castlevania games, you know 2 things. 1. Whip. Simon's main attack is his whip, and it's got enough range to be extremely useful in taking out surrounding enemies, but not like, super overpowered. You can upgrade from a small leather whip to a chain whip to long chain whip. You probably won't ever be stuck at the first 2 levels. The game usually makes sure that you're at the maximum whip level if you're not. The other thing that you probably know about old Castlevania, and this is way more infamous, 2. Jump. So Simon can jump like literally any other side-scroller ever. No shit. But you see, the funny little thing about this game's jump is that you can never adjust the jump arc, which means that if you accidentally jump into a pit, get ready to hear. Another major mechanic are the sub-weapons, which can help you if an enemy just cannot be whipped, and they range from something simple as the knife, which I'm gonna be honest, the knife kind of sucks, so I barely used it. Choose something like holy water, which constantly damages enemies who come into contact with the fire it produces. If you couldn't tell, that one was my favorite. Of course, you can't just like spam them. You're limited by the amount of hearts you have. That's right, that's not your health. This is your health. The hearts are your weapon ammo. Why? I have no idea. This confused me when I started playing these games. Why? There's also the bags of money. These are extremely pointless and only contribute to your score. In a single-player home console game that doesn't save. Why are they here? Just to suffer? I don't know. There's also a screen nuke that yeah, this is why I put a flashlight warning. There's also invincibility too. Cool. Now that's most of the gameplay stuff. But what about what you're looking at? Well, as you can tell, that's a video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Obviously, the game's aged graphically. It's an NES game, of course it has. But for 1986, this game looks pretty great compared to some other NES games, like take Metroid, another game released in the same year, for example. That game uses these boring, plain black backgrounds. Meanwhile, Castlevania over here has these super detailed, for the time, backgrounds that really sell the vibe of an old, creepy, lived-in castle. Plus, the sprite work ain't bad either. Enemies look fine, the doors look okay, that animation's kinda clunky. And there's Simon. His actual sprite isn't that bad, but his walk cycle just looks really damn goofy. Judging from the later games that use a similar walk cycle, it's supposed to be a determined, albeit somewhat robotic, walk forward. But the way it looks in this game, Simon just looks like he's got to use the bathroom and he's holding it in. But, you know, otherwise, the game looks great. It really sells that playing a horror movie goal that Akamatsu was trying to go for. So the first level it's pretty simple. It's honestly pretty easy. And we come up on our first boss. A giant bat. It's pretty easily defeated by the axe that you get a few rooms before. Only thing of note is that after I killed it, I found this weird Roman numeral 2 thing. You can find these all throughout the game, and I never figured out what they did. What are they for? Also, lovely. So on to stage 2, and like immediately the game has a difficulty spike. You gotta deal with these Medusa head things which snake along the air. It can be pretty difficult to jump over them without... Yeah. Not only that, but this stage has way more bottomless pits than the last one, so you will probably end up jumping into one if you aren't careful. Surprisingly, I don't think I did. Way to go, me. Oh wait, here's some footage of me doing it. I'm disappointed in you, me. Even if Medusa isn't pushing you down a pit, you'll probably get hit by a lot of them and start thinking, damn, I need some health. And then you discover one of the things that makes Castlevania so hard. You can only get health from meat hidden in walls. You know, like most meat is hidden. Yeah, so, get ready to whip random walls, just in case there's health in them. I'm not complaining about it though, since the game usually isn't too obnoxious about hiding them, and you can find most of them if you just, like, you know, whip the walls every once in a while. So after falling and falling and falling and falling and falling, you come up to our second boss, Medusa. Because if you weren't tired of all the 10 gajillion Medusa heads before, here's a giant one. To be honest, she's not too bad, and she goes down pretty quickly, like, just like the bat, if you just use holy water instead of the axe. On to stage 3! Not much to mention about this stage itself, you know, it's solid. Although the music, Wicked Child, absolutely slaps for no reason at all. Listen to this. By this point, you may have realized something. This game doesn't save, nor does it have any form of a password system. So yeah, if you're playing the original NES version of this game, you gotta beat it in one go. Thankfully, the game doesn't do any stupid continues crap, like where you have to start from the beginning if you get to any game over, so you won't ever be sent back to stage 1. Funny enough, the original Japanese version could save because it was on the Famicom Disk System. What's the Famicom Disk System? It was an add-on for the Japanese version of the NES, which was called Famicom, and basically it let you play floppy disks on it. So the game was on a floppy disk instead of a cartridge, and a lot of games saved when in America they couldn't save, like Metroid, for example. The mechanic in Castlevania basically works that every time you die, you can save to whatever profile you created. Now, it's not like cartridge games couldn't save. Like Legend of Zelda, that game could save, but you had to put a battery in them. And obviously, Konami of America was being super cheap here because they didn't even bother to put a password system in. Thank God for the save states that modern collections have. Oh, by the way, did you know that the original Japanese name for this game was called Dracula's Satanic Castle? Gee, I wonder why they changed that. Now, anyways, at the end of stage 3, we fight these mummies who, they kind of suck. Either you're stuck between them and can't fight back, or, yeah. Now, stage 4. Stage 4. Stage 4 kind of sucks. You end up in what I think is supposed to be the castle's sewers, or it could just be a nearby cave, I don't know. The stage is mostly okay, up until you reach the boss, Igor and Frankenstein. The whole point is that you gotta kill Frankenstein while you have this stupid tiny bugger constantly hopping around and shooting fireballs and like... I already don't like the Fleaman enemy, which Igor basically is. They just jump around and constantly whiff your attacks. And now you have to deal with one that can't die, and he shoots fireballs, which, given how Shyman controls, it's hard to deal with. And it just makes playing through the entire stage a bit annoying, especially since the opening sewer section isn't great to begin with, because you have these obnoxious, randomly spawning bats to deal with while you do platforming. So I cheated. I made a save state right before the boss, but hey, at least I tried to beat it the legitimate way. But, eventually Frankenstein dies and we move on to stage 5 with one of the best songs in this entire game, Heart of Fire. Now, stage 5 is tough. Like, really, really tough. Not only is it long, but it's also got these ultra tough axe armor guys that take multiple hits to defeat, and, well, they throw axes at you. I don't think it ever really gets to the point of being super frustrating and annoying like stage 4, except for right here, maybe. The boss for this stage is deaf, and, like, goddamn, is he difficult. He flies around the room spawning these sickles, and they can very easily overwhelm you. I had to cheat for this one too. I'm not experienced enough to survive this. So after killing Death, we reach stage 6. The final stage. Oh, what the fuck? Stage itself is actually not that bad, especially compared to stage 5, and I think that's just because it's super short, and it has no boss. The game considers Dracula a separate stage, so yeah, stage 6 isn't really that notable. The music is really good though. The music is really good. Now, we finally confront Dracula, and wow, he sure is making up for Stage 6's lack of difficulty. He basically randomly spawns around the room and shoots fireballs. You can only deal damage by hitting his head, so your best bet is to wait until he shoots his fireballs, and then jump and hit him at the same time. This took me way too long to figure out, and so I spent a while just hearing da 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 da. So after losing some of my sanity and also, finally beating Dracula, the dude's head pops straight off and suddenly whatever the hell that is appears. And no, that isn't Dracula transformed into some hideous abomination or anything. That is apparently the Curse of Man, which was unleashed after Dracula's body split into pieces. This thing kind of jumps around and spits fire at you, and yeah, that's it. The difficulty is mostly relying on how much health you had after killing Dracula. As long as you have the holy water and walk under him when he jumps, and if your controller doesn't fucking disconnect, he isn't too hard, just takes a lot of hits. Once it dies, the castle crumbles, and we get the credits, learning the game was directed by Trance Fishers! We get these kind of like parody credits where it lists such iconic names like James Banana and Christopher B. And Simon's name is mistranslated as fucking Simon Belmondo. And now we're back at stage 1. So that was the original Castlevania. And to be honest, I didn't expect an older game like this to hold up this well. But to be honest, besides, I don't know, stage 4's boss, this game was pretty good all the way through. Which for first entries for a lot of games, even newer ones, that's not very common. Especially for like old NES stuff. So obviously, Castlevania sold pretty well. And in 1988, we got a sequel, Simon's Quest. I'll talk about this one if I don't procrastinate on it. Bye!